Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be making over some things and we're going to start with these books. So I like to use about 3 books for a book stack, which is what we're going to be making. And I like to have them similar in size, and if there's some that are a little smaller, then I like to put those on top. And I just strip the book jacket off along with the spine, and then I can just kind of embellish the outside the way I want. Now you could take a hardback book and paint it, and that would work well too. I just happen to like the look of the pages. But now I'm not going to use these that I just took the jacket off of. I had taken a jacket off of a hardback book and wasn't able to get that spine off as well. And so I'm just going to use those because I'm going to be using these clay molds. And so it's going to hide all that, and I'm not going to have to worry about that I wasn't able to get that off. So some viewers told me about this DAS clay, and this is my first time using it. I will say that I was, for the most part, happy with this clay. What I didn't like is it's a little wetter than I'm used to. But now I'm thinking that if I just kind of leave it out for a little bit, then it will dry out a little more, and it'll be easier for me to or easier to hold together. I didn't have any problem working with it because it's very pliable. I did like that about it, but on those thinner molds, it was a little bit easier or a little bit harder to keep the mold together once I pulled it out. And here are those that I wasn't able to get all of the spine off, so I'm just going to use these here. And I said that I used hardbacks here, but I think these were paperback also. I just wasn't able to get that spine off that well. So now I'm just using Titebond glue, and I'm not sponsored by anyone, but I just like the way the Titebond works on gluing these molds on. And I just go ahead and glue them on while they're wet. I know that people do it both ways. This way just works better for me. And like I said, this Titebond glue works well for me because I like the Gorilla Glue and I like the E6000. But both of those tend to slide somewhat, and I don't have that issue with this Titebond. And then, so after I put these molds on here, then I'm going to have to let them dry overnight before I can paint them and finish these books. So I did this a day ahead here so that it would have a good chance to dry. Now, it's always nice, or in my opinion, it's nice to use books that have some age on them. And these do have some, but I like for them to have a lot of age on them. So I'm going to use some strong coffee and just kind of paint it on those pages so that it will look aged. So if you want to use books, new books, then that's fine. Also, I have even gone to the Dollar Tree and bought their books, and then, like I said, they have that new look, but that's not a problem because not only is that coffee going to color the pages, but it's also going to keep them from being so new looking. And where we get it wet with this, it kind of fluffs up those pages a little, for lack of a better word. It just doesn't look as neat and tight as a new book. And I like that look. So, like I said, these are aged somewhat anyway, some more than others. But I'm just using this coffee, just dipping a paintbrush in the coffee and just kind of painting that on just to give them even more color. Now, I have made these stacked books in a style that I didn't need this these pages to be discolored like this. And if I were doing maybe a farmhouse style set, maybe I might want just black and white, in which case I wouldn't want this to be these to be darkened. But for the most part, I like to age the books if they're not aged enough already. And because I want the pages to be showing on top some, I'm also aging the outside of both sides. I just feel like whatever I decide to put on it is just going to look better if I have the aged paper underneath. Now here, I've let these dry overnight, and I'm just painting buttercream from Dixie Belle. Again, I'm not sponsored, but I'm using buttercream from Dixie Belle because I feel like it goes with these pages well. And now I'm just inking up my Kindest Regards stamp from IOD, and just stamping that whole front there. Now, if I had a page that I liked what was on it, then obviously I wouldn't worry about this, but this one didn't have a page that I wanted to display, and so I'm just adding this script to it to give it more of a finished look on top. Now, I also decided here that I didn't want to see the little seam between the clay and the book, the front of the book. So I just used a piece of lace from the Dollar Tree and just glued that across that little seam. And at this point, after you have these books glued together, you can really just dress them up however you want. If you want to keep it simple, then just tie your string around the books. If you want it to be more of a shabby chic look, then add laces like I'm doing, and even maybe add a shabby bow to the top. If you like bling, then obviously you can add some bling to this. I'm not big on bling myself, but like I said, this is where you kind of make these books your style, or to suit your taste. You could even make some cloth flowers and add to this. Now I'm just adding a stamp here to this corner because I felt like I wanted a little more on the front than what I had. So again, you can just add whatever you want at this point. But I do want to keep mine somewhat simple, so I'm just going to be tying mine together, and I'm not going to worry about a bow. I'm just going to tie it in a knot and tie them together. And for me, that's plenty. I like to keep, a lot of times, I like to keep these tops as flat as possible so that I can use them as risers. Because, when you're putting something on top of these, you don't want it to not sit straight. So, like I said, that's the main reason I just like to kind of leave mine simple, because I'm just going to kind of use it as a riser in my vignette. But I really like this simple look anyway. I make a lot of these little book stacks, and I make them to go with different types of decor that are in the store, and I use them to kind of add to my color scheme. So, like I said, there's really not much limit to what you can do to these. Now I found this little lamp, and it just had this plain shade that is not in focus right now, but I bought it for like $5 at the thrift store, and it worked, and it was complete. Even the shade was in a really good shape and something that I could easily work with. So I'm just painting this vintage duck egg from Dixie Belle, and I give it a couple coats, and it covers really well. And now I'm using my my stamps. These are Redesign, and the set is called I See Paris. And I had struggled with that on the last video and couldn't think of what it was called. And I had a sweet viewer that is so good about giving me information, and she told me that was the name of it. So thank you so much, Amber. But now I am just putting one of these stamps, and this little stamp is from the same set, on each side and of this little lampshade. And when you can get a lampshade that's in really good condition like this one was, and you just feel like it needs just a little something, then just pop a stamp on it. So now after I finish this shade, and just putting the stamp on it is really all that I do. Now I'm ready to go back to my lamp. I've let it dry, and now I'm just adding some white wax. And the white wax will do two things here, actually three things. One is it will add some more depth to the color because it's going to settle down into the porosity of the paint, but it's also going to settle down into the detail and just leave that detail white, and it just makes it a really pretty look. But then the third thing that it will do is protect this chalk paint, because anytime that you use chalk paint, you do have to seal it with something. And this chalk paint not only seals, but it also just adds another layer of interest. And as you can see here, it just changed that up and just gave it a lot prettier look, I think. The third item I'm going to make over is just this little frame. And I'm sure you guys have noticed you can buy these in thrift stores for very little money. I think I maybe paid $1 for this one, but usually I don't ever pay over a couple dollars for a frame, unless it's a large one, of course. But this one just happens to be a plastic frame, but that's not a problem because it's going to paint really well anyway. And I'm going to use this same vintage duck egg on this frame and just give it a couple of coats. And then I will be adding white wax to this piece also. And that's really all the frame is going to take. I don't worry with distressing because there's some areas here for this white wax to settle into. So again, distressing is not necessary. I'm also going to keep the inside of this frame kind of simple also, because it's such a small area. So I'm just taking a piece of drop cloth and I'm cutting it slightly larger than the glass that goes in the front, because I'm just going to take some hot glue and I'm going to wrap this piece of glass, because I don't want that shiny look from the glass in the front. I want the front to be cloth. So I just took that drop cloth and glued that around that piece of glass and then just put it back inside the frame. And now I'm adding a stamp to this. And this is just one of the stamps from that same set called I See Paris. And I'm just kind of putting that toward the top because I want to add some handmade flowers to the bottom here. And I'm just going to make those flowers directly onto the cloth. Instead of making them and then attaching them, I'm just going to make them directly onto the cloth. So I've just torn up some fabric here, and you can just use any fabric that you want. And like I said, I just ripped it in strips. And now I tied a knot in one end and glued that center to the center of where I want my flower. And now I'm just kind of twisting and gluing and twisting and gluing, and until I get my flower the size that I want it. And for this center flower here, I'm going to be putting 3 flowers on the bottom, and for the center one I want it to be larger than the other 2. So I'm just kind of just twisting and gluing, like I said, until I get this the size that I want it, and then I'm just going to clip that fabric off and glue the end down, and then I can start with my next flower. Now for this fabric, I've just torn up a piece of a curtain shear, and this particular one had a little bit of design to it, but any kind of shear will work. And then I'm using this little lace from the Dollar Tree, and I'm making my other 2 flowers out of that. And because I want these flowers to be smaller, I wouldn't really want to use this on larger flowers because it's so thin. But since I want these little small rosettes here on the ends, then it's going to work just fine. And then that's all that I'm going to be doing to this piece, and then it'll be ready to add to my vignette. I want to say thank you to a very sweet viewer, Frankie. I don't want to mention her last name because I didn't get her permission here. But she came by the shop today to see me, and it was so nice to meet her. She's such a sweet lady. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next. God bless you and your family.